In 1950, when I started in the Lower Alloways Creek Township School District, there were 4 schools throughout the township. Instead of all grades being in one school and in each little town, as they were when my father and his generation went through the school district, we were now, different grades were at different schools. So it was designated for a particular grade, and students were then bused to their school. By 1958, the new school was built and ready for business in Canton, and my class was the first 8th grade class to not only attend that school, but to graduate from that school. Things were drastically different in the new school based on what we had been used to in our little one-room schoolhouses throughout the district. And I just want to add here that both of my parents were very influential in getting that new school built. I remember Mom telling me how that the PTA mothers went door to door trying to encourage people to vote, of course, to float the bond to pay for the new school. And I don't know if my dad was on the school board, but he was very involved in the drafting part of the layout of the new school. When we were in the one-room schoolhouses, if you wanted a drink, you went outside with your cup and got your water from the hand pump. If you needed to use the bathroom, you went to an outhouse, which was kind of no big deal to most of us because we didn't have flush toilets or indoor plumbing anyway at home, so going to school didn't seem strange or unusual, not to everybody, but to many students in the district. When we moved into our house in Harmersville, we had a wooden pump box and a hand pump, as well as an outhouse. So very much like what I experienced when I went to school. When we got to the new school, we had hot and cold running water, we had a sink, and there was a boys' bathroom and a girls' bathroom, and two grades, like 7th and 8th grade, shared those bathrooms. Graduation prior to that year was held, I believe, at Canton Baptist Church. It might have been in other churches in the district, but I know for sure that Canton Baptist Church was probably the only venue in town that was big enough to accommodate the class on the podium and their parents in the audience. For heat in our little one-room schoolhouses, we had coal burning, which I think were then converted to oil-fired space heaters. And one of the jobs that older students told me that they had to do was to dump a fresh load of coal into the heater with no concern that we would be burned at all. It's just what you did, and I guess people were careful. Of course, in the new school, we had a central heating system. In the beginners and first grade room, and for sure in 7th grade, I'm pretty sure we had those desks that were screwed to the floor with the seat in front and then the desk part in the back. I even have my dad's little desk that he sat in first grade at the Crossroads Schoolhouse. Of course, when we moved into the new school, we had all fancy new desks and chairs, which were very easily moved. In going to the one-room schoolhouses, no fancy gym equipment. We had a kickball, jump rope, we could play hopscotch, we could, as I said earlier, we could play house with the leaves and the tree roots and the acorns. And we did have what we called monkey bars. Back in those days, girls had to wear skirts or dresses to school. So if you wanted to play on the monkey bars, you had to wear shorts or pants under your skirt. At the new school, they have, this beautiful fancy playground equipment now, but I don't think in 8th grade I would have been playing on playground equipment anyway. We just mainly played softball. I already mentioned that one of the highlights of recess at the Canton School was to go skate or slide on the ice. Technology was at a minimum. As I said, I think Mrs. Cobb was way ahead of her time. Basically, we had the supplies that we needed. We had paper, pencil, rulers, erasers. I remember the white paste in the jar that some kids just had to try out to taste it. And then there was that orangey kind of glue in the bottle with a rubber stopper, and you would press down on your paper to dispense the glue. Many of our lessons were copied on the board by the teacher, and then we had to then copy them either on our paper or in our notebooks to do whatever work we needed to do. That changed a lot when we got to the new school because there was a central movie projector and other probably overhead projectors that the teachers were able to use. So technology did improve a bit when we got to the new school. At least it was available for everybody at the same time. I remember, and this carried through to 8th grade, but every day in school was started by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. It was not optional. As we got older, to that was added the singing of a patriotic song, reading a passage of scripture from the Old Testament, and at least in high school, maybe in the older grades in elementary school, reciting the Lord's Prayer. Well, that all came to an end in 1964 when the Supreme Court sided with Madalyn Murray O'Hair, and those evil practices of Bible reading and prayer were banned. Today, I'm sure that there are schools who no longer salute the flag, and children aren't even taught the Star-Spangled Banner. And is it any wonder that we have such a lack of patriotism in our youth today? In the new school, we had a nice fancy cafeteria. As far as I know, it was managed in the very beginning by Mrs. Doris Hutton. And later on, my mother, Dorothy Carll, Carrie Shimp, and I think Mrs. Dorothy Burrell, to name a few. I don't remember all of them. I was only there 1 year. But they were the lunch ladies who helped in the cafeteria. Back in our one-room schoolhouse days, we all brought a bag lunch, or if we were lucky enough to have a little metal lunchbox with a thermos, we brought that too. And you might think, well, what on earth did children do who didn't have a lunch? And that happened frequently. It didn't matter. Somebody was always willing to give up a tuna fish sandwich. You would think that busing would have really stood out in my mind because I had never ridden a bus before, but it didn't. I don't really have any members of busing. I just remember that Mr. Elwell, Mr. Fowler, and Mr. Stiles were our bus drivers. Mr. Stiles being the driver of the high school bus, I think. But one bus memory I do have that really isn't school related, but it's township related. At some point, I believe it was 4th grade, the people at Pennsville Park sent a bus around to the outlying areas to pick up kids and take them to the park roller rink to go roller skating. That was the highlight of those years, being able to do that. First of all, it was at night, and in LAC you didn't go anywhere at night other than maybe to church. There was nothing to do. So to get on a bus at night and go to the roller rink with a busload of your friends was just fantastic. And then to be able to learn to skate was another plus for all of that. So that was, again, not a school memory, but certainly a township memory.